Wednesday, May 11th, 2016. This is a special meeting only because we changed the time to 5 o'clock, and our future meetings will be at 5 o'clock, but they will not be special meetings. So the first item on the agenda is Dr. Stella, Superintendent of the Woodbridge Board of Education.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by saying that I think it was 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, I had the honor of participating in the Bethwood Baseball League opening season game, and Ellen Scalator was there too, many families from the community. We're so proud of the work that Dwight Rowland and the members of the executive board and the numerous volunteers have been doing over the past 40 years for our children. It was a wonderful community event, and again, it highlights how important volunteerism is in town. And Beecher Road School is a jewel of a school. It receives tremendous support from the citizens of Woodbridge and from the boards. There are many indicators of success. One of them is highlighted in the update that I gave you. For the second time in as many years, fifth graders at Beecher Road School participated in the Flame Challenge. Scientific question, what is sound? And scientists throughout the world were challenged to come up with an answer, and the children were the ones who gave feedback and judged the scientists on their responses. Beecher Road School was one of 7 schools in the world chosen for this here honor, and they were on an international telecast. So it was a pleasure to watch the children, representatives getting up and giving direct feedback to the scientists. So that's one aspect. As I mentioned, Beecher Road School was #1 in the country with the FBI competition as far as internet safety, and members of the FBI will be at the DARE graduation. I believe it's on May 20th to formally present that award to our school. And Beecher Road students in grades 3 through 6 annually participate in the Continental Math League. They participate with other students on the same grade level throughout the country. Students are given 6 challenging word problems and asked to solve them within a given time period. We're proud to announce that our 4th graders won a regional first place in their division. There were 422 schools in our region, including Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Additionally, one of our 6th graders scored a perfect score, the only one I'm told in the state of Connecticut, and one of the few nationally. So we're very proud of our children and the work they were doing, and we're very thankful to our citizens for their ongoing support. There are other soft areas of success. For example, on May 14th and 15th, that's this Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 3, Beecher Road School will have an art exhibit supported by the Yale Property Service in New Haven. And so all community members are invited to attend. And they'll highlight many pieces of ceramics and paintings and so on. And they'll also connect it to the 100-year anniversary of Massaro Farm, to some work that they've been doing in that area. So those are a few areas. As far as the budget goes, I made a promise when I first came here that I would live by a mantra, and that is that we would always move to working with others to improve the quality of education at Beecher Road School, and at the same time being respectful to our taxpayers. Well, let me give you some feedback on that. Mr. Pulo and I and members of our Finance Committee have been really looking at the budget. Special education projected deficit this year is approximately $400,000, as we know. It's a spike year. The total projected deficit, regular education and special education, through Herculean efforts, we have reduced that to under $140,000. So we take our mantra very, very seriously. And also we're looking at next year's budget, because I know everyone in town is really trying to watch out. It's a tough budget year. So Mr. Pulo, I, members of the Finance Committee, have taken a look The initial request was for $344,000 increase, that's 2.48%. We identified additional reductions that we could offer, amounting to approximately $60,000 to bring our total request closer to 2%. So if that's a help, we're offering that. And those are in the areas of building improvements, which we could reduce, and also savings. We're taking a closer look at our electricity, and we see some unanticipated savings because of the upgrade in the coming year. So we have identified $60,000 and hope that's a help when the Board of Finance comes together at the town meeting as far as budget reductions. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Also, May 31st is the ribbon cutting ceremony at Beecher Road School. Everyone is invited. Betsy's been working hard on that, organizing it. It will be a day of celebration because it will be an achievement of a dream, and that's the upgrade at Beecher Road School. Our solar panels are in place, 900 plus. There's a lot to celebrate. Are there any questions? Otherwise, thank you.
Any questions for that, Stella?
No,
Tony?
Tony, to that point, what Dr. Stella was just discussing, the latest budget alterations, I guess I would call them, or changes, has that gone to the Board of Finance?
So what'll happen is Dr. Stella will get the exact information to us in advance of Monday's meeting. And then, you're talking about the ones for next year?
Next year's budget.
So, and then what'll happen is those will be presented as a recommendation at the town meeting. And then based on the attendance at the town meeting, either it gets voted on at the meeting or after the meeting if there's not a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Stella.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Stella, will you be here next month?
Will I be here next?
Will you be here for our Board of Select, or is this your last
No,
report to our Board of Selectmen?
I'm here till the end of June.
Okay, good. Good.
And as long as needed.
On an as-needed basis.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Margaret, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I'm sure you covered it.
Okay, thank you
Thank you very much. Okay, next is request for permission to post signs for Coachman Square Business Fair. Betsy, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So the town and Coachman Square have been working together to co-host the town's first business expo on Saturday, June 4th at Coachman. And the event is designed to show off all of the great local businesses that we have in town. As you all know, we've been hosting a lot of business events. Most of them are designed to help our businesses with resources or do networking. This one is designed to help our businesses promote themselves to our local residents and help our residents understand which businesses are here in town. So it's free to participate and it's open to the public. Businesses are encouraged to bring coupons, samples, items for sale, so it should be a really fun event. And the request is to put signs, the A-frame signs that we use, up on 4 different locations, the common locations that we use. So Lucy and Litchfield, Center Road and 63, Rimmon and Racebrook, and the intersection of 243 and Rimmon. And this is it's a small sample, a sample of what would be put up on those signs.
Thank you. Is there a motion to grant permission to post the signs as described by Betsy?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
I just have a quick question. Betsy, maybe you should say for the camera who businesses should contact in the event they want to participate.
Mm-hmm.
They could contact myself. My email is byagla, Y-A-G-L-A, @woodbridgect.org, or Mary DeGennaro, and her email address is mdegenaro, that's DEGENNARO, @benchmarkquality.com. Thank you.
And I want to thank Betsy so much for the work she's done on this, and Mary DeGennaro as well. This is a terrific opportunity for our businesses. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next is accepting applications for the Neighborhood Assistance Act, and Mrs. Shaw is going to remind us about the Neighborhood Assistance Act.
The Neighborhood Assistance Act is effective from 1995. It was put in place by Van Nordstrom. It is called the Van Nordstrom Neighborhood Assistance Act, And with this, businesses can receive a credit of 60% of their approved contribution to certain programs as tax credits, or 100% in some cases, especially if it's an energy conservation program that they're sponsoring. And all this has to be approved by the Department of Revenue Services. The only thing that the town does, the town is a processing center for the applications. The nonprofits seek donations, submit applications outlining the proposed projects to the municipal liaison, and I was designated many years ago as the municipal liaison. The municipality governing board acknowledges the receipt of the applications. We don't approve them, we simply acknowledge receipt of them. And we have to hold a public hearing the following month in June to receive any comments from the public regarding the applications. Following the public hearing, the applications, minutes of the meeting, minutes of the public hearing are submitted to the Department of Revenue Services, and that has to be done by July 1st. If the applicants, it is the applicant's responsibility to solicit donations from businesses. We don't have anything to do with that. The Department of Revenue Services review the applications and they either approve or disapprove. They notify the municipal liaison, and then the municipality notifies the applicants that their application has been approved by their program has been approved by the state. They go out and they get the business sponsors. Those get sent to the state. The state sends back information that they have been approved. And then the state just does everything else from there. And then at the end of the program, we get a very thick document, now it's all by email, of all of the approved applications and programs in the state.
Thank you. And we have an application here from the Amity Teen Center. That's the only applicant, and they have two different requests. So is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of the applications and to schedule a public hearing for June 8th? Can we say we'll schedule a public hearing for our next Board of Selectmen meeting? Okay. At 7 p.m.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? If not,
It's a win-win situation for people involved.
right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next, we have Eric Worthman and Catherine Ward from the library requesting permission to hang a banner at the old firehouse regarding the library's farmers markets. Good evening.
Hi. So we are requesting to hang a banner.
You can sit.
Counsel, you may be seated.
They're very formal at the library, I know.
We are requesting to hang up a banner as we did last year for the farmers market on the road right by the old firehouse on 114 and Newton Lane. Last year, Public Works put up 2 poles for us, and we were able to hang the banner from those poles. So we're requesting to do the same as we did last year. And I don't actually have the banner because it's currently being repaired, but it will be the same minus the dates, which will change.
Is there a motion to grant permission?
Second.
Any?
Didn't they put one on the building?
Yeah, I think there was.
I'm trying to remember back. I thought there was.
We did put one on the building the first year, and we found that people were driving right by it and they didn't see it well, so we moved the location. We had a little more success.
Any other questions? Perhaps you want to just mention when the farmers markets will be for anyone who's listening. And
Sure.
On the
This
10th.
year, the markets will be running weekly, and we'll be starting on Wednesday, June 29th, and they'll go every Wednesday from 3:30 to 6:30 until August 31st.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you may stand up.
We're now at item number 5 is to acknowledge resignations. We've received the resignation of Buddy DeGennaro from Town Plan and Zoning, and Sharon Bender from our representative to the Greater New Haven Transit District Board. I want to particularly thank them for for their service. Of course, Sharon is continuing on the Human Services Commission as chair, but a particular thank you to Buddy DeGennaro, who has spent so many hours and been such an important participant in town plan and zoning. Any other comments on that? Not. I don't think we need to vote on that. Okay. Next, item number 6 are appointments. The first is the Woodbridge representative to the West Rock Ridge Park Advisory Council, and we have a note here from Don Menzies, who has been our representative. He would very much like to continue, and I will move the reappointment of Don Menzies. Is there a second? Any questions or discussion?
Second.
Oh,
I think.
oh, I moved
Oh,
it.
Move second.
I moved it, okay.
Oh, I
and
thought
that's
Maria
second.
moved it.
That's it, doesn't matter.
Double move
We've
second.
got-
Doesn't matter.
I'll second
it is so,
If you want a full second.
It's a lot of motion.
it is well,
I'll second it too.
Sorry.
Jerry, the
No,
whole
why
board
not?
moves and seconds. No. Any questions or discussion about that? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And with respect to the Greater New Haven Transit District, we have a memo from Mary Ellen LaRocca telling us that the Human Services Commission is recommending that Chris Lovejoy be appointed to replace Sharon Bender. Is there a motion to approve the appointment of Chris Lovejoy?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
I will just add, I think that Chris was the alternate, so it works out well. She
Great.
You know, meets 4 times a year, so it's a perfect segue there.
Good, thank you.
Oh, and Susan Davison became the alternate. I'll tell you about that in my liaison report.
Okay, good. We're on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, I know. You're riveted, right? Riveted with excitement.
Also, with respect to appointments,
been a
we
long
had a relatively informal ad hoc committee. It was Susan from our board and David King from the Board of Finance to look at the radio communication system and try to help us understand what was happening, sort of a plain language explanation. And I believe at the last meeting we got their preliminary draft report. And in looking at that and speaking more with the police department and fire department, it's clear that we really do need to take next steps and understand this and see what we should be doing next. So I would like to expand the committee and talk a little bit more about their responsibilities. So the membership will be Susan Jacobs as chair. Joe Dye has graciously agreed to join the committee. Thank you, Joe. David King will continue from the Board of Finance, and Paul Kuriakose from the Board of Finance will also continue on this committee. We will have non-voting town staff as advisors to the committee. These are the people that you would be speaking with in any event. So that will be the police chief or his or her designee, the fire chief or his designee, and Tony or his designee. And the responsibilities are to include review, evaluate, and report on the status of the existing radio communications and related equipment currently in use by the town, and recommend replacements, enhancements, or upgrades to the system as necessary to provide for successful radio communications. So that will be the committee and the charge, unless anybody wants to suggest any change to that language, which we can always do at another time, but if there's anything else. Okay, so thank you both very much for taking on this.
Designee?
Wow. Yes. Have you met yet?
You're committed.
He's already thinking of a designee, haven't even met yet. Wow.
Okay, so we are well ahead of schedule. It's not 6 o'clock, so we will move to item number 7, which is Town Council's report. And this is an update on the Newfield construction matter regarding the oil-water separator. We've been talking about this for some time, and we're talking about a possible vote on a settlement. So for that reason, is there a motion to move into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-206, capital B?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion about that? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, so we're now going to executive session. We'll ask that everybody leave and the cameras be turned off.
Except Jim.
So we are now out of executive session. No votes were taken. And in addition to our counsel, Jerry Weiner, we also invited our financial officer and administrative officer, Tony Genovese.
I don't think the sound system is on.
Oh, it's
Oh.
not.
Oh, we turned it off.
Let's-
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good eye.
Thank you. I will repeat what I said. Perhaps it was already on TV, but we are now out of executive session. No votes were taken. And in addition to inviting in our town council, Jerry Weiner, we invited Tony Genovese, our finance director and administrative officer, to be part of the executive session. Town council will now give an update about the Newfield construction matter.
This is a matter that started in May of 2014 when the town first became aware of a possible leak at the firehouse in the area where we have an oil water separator. We have a 1,000-gallon oil water separator tank and a 4,000-gallon holding tank which are buried. The oil water separator tank is buried. We noticed some evidence of a leak. The town immediately called our environmental experts, and in this case it was a gentleman by the name of Santovasi, and he came out immediately, investigated, and in fact there was evidence of a leak, and he indicated we had to uncover the oil water separator to find out if there was an actual leak. We did that at great expense, and it was determined that the couplings or two pipes that come together were leaking and causing oil to spill into the ground. We immediately Mr. Santomasi immediately notified the State Department of Environmental Protection. We complied with all of their requirements. They sent people down. We made sure the area was protected, and we had to begin the remediation of the contaminated soil, which we did. We we notified the entity that we believe was responsible for this leak, and that was the general contractor of the firehouse, which was built in 2009. The company is Newfield Construction. We put them on notice because after the investigation by Mr. Santovasi, he indicated to us that he believed it was the fault of the installer at the time the firehouse was under construction. Newfield Construction was the general, and they subbed this particular work out to a company called Midstate. We put Midstate, Newfield on notice. Their insurance companies got involved, and we agreed with the various potential defendants after the ground was cleaned up, after the new oil water separator tank was installed, after we were confident that there was no more problems. We closed the hole. We gave all the parties an opportunity to inspect what we believe was a defective installation. One company Newfield did come out and send their expert and inspect it. They disagreed with the cause. Our expert, Mr. Santovasi, said it was because the two pipes were not properly installed. We then became involved with two different lawyers and two or three different insurance companies, and we all agreed to have this go to a non-binding mediation with a retired Superior Court judge. And time has, as it usually happens in these cases, moves on. We have continued settlement discussions with the insurance companies and the contractor and subcontractor, and we have an offer. Just recently we received an offer that I believe it is appropriate to bring before the Board of Selectmen for the board's determination as to whether this offer of litigation should be accepted. And that offer is a total sum to be paid to the town in the amount of $85,000 by all the defendants. It appears that there's going to be an issue as to whether the town in litigation or in arbitration would be able to successfully prove that Newfield or Midstate was the cause. Their defense is that they weren't, that they're blaming the town for some extent, which we think will not prevail, but in litigation, you never know. There's no guarantees one way or the other, so I am asking you to consider the offer of $85,000.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the offer of $85,000?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion this time? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now go to item number 8 on the agenda, which is an update on Country Club of Woodbridge. Scott, if you don't mind, we'll hear your presentation. If it's not concluded by 6 o'clock, we may have to stop for public comment and then resume, but we may be completed by then, so please. Scott Kuhn from HRP is here this evening to follow up on the public meeting that we had last month, where we invited the abutting homeowners to come and ask questions about contamination and remediation at the country club. And just as a reminder, at that meeting, we had people from HRP, but also the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, the State Department of Health, and the Quinnipiac Valley Health District. And I would like to just publicly thank them once more for taking time to be here, and they were very, very helpful. Most importantly, they all assured our town residents that there is no health concern from the contamination that has been identified at the country club property. What we did learn at that meeting is that although there is no required time frame to complete the remediation, it would be advisable to take steps to commence the remediation at this time. And that was one of the points that was made, and there were also concerns expressed by abutting homeowners, understandably. So Scott is going to give us an update on the water sampling. We talked about it that night. We did updated water sampling, and all the results were not in, and also recommendations for next steps. Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sure. Thank you for allowing me to provide the status update tonight. So as Ellen mentioned, we did conduct an additional round of testing, which included all of the monitor wells that we currently have installed on the country club property, as well as one surface water sample. The results are received. We've prepared documentation in draft form at this time. We're finalizing and getting a final document assembled for distribution to all neighboring properties that had received notice of the remediation. Notice of remediation was a requirement by the state prior to conducting any remediation. It's a standard process. The letter will be provided with the results to each of the property owners. The results indicate all concentrations of all compounds that we're looking at on the property are below drinking water criterias, everything that we compare to. And none of the results indicate or suggest any health risks in groundwater on the property.
Can you also mention how these results compare to the earlier results?
The results are generally consistent with past results. There's some decreases, some are the same, but overall generally stable. Everything below criteria that we compare to.
Scott, one quick question.
Sure.
If I'm not mistaken, was there 16, something like that, 16 wells that you were going to test? There was quite a few on the property.
There's 8 wells.
8 wells?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, it's 8 wells and 1 surface water sample.
Great.
Yep.
This is within the property and not the surrounding?
Correct. These are all within the boundaries of the property.
Thank you.
We also collected, as we had in the past, a sample from 60 Woodfield Road. That sample, as it has in the past, contains concentrations of trihalomethanes. We discussed during the meeting last month that those concentrations are related to a chlorinated source of water, a public water source, something of that nature. The concentrations are slightly above comparison criteria that we compare to for drinking water. So we are recommending, or will recommend, that they change out their carbon vessel. They already have treatment on the well, and continue to treat that.
Is that a private home?
That's a private home.
Okay.
It's a separate property.
I didn't know what the address of the country club of Woodbridge is. It's
50.
50. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
There's been no
Sure.
determination of where that source.
The source is not known.
Source is not known.
Again, it's a chlorinated source. It's nothing that we're seeing on the country club property. It doesn't appear to be coming from the country club property.
Scott,
Yep.
to Ellen's question last time, how did that compare to the last time? I know that well showed the chlorine before. Is this a higher level or?
These are similar concentrations.
Okay.
And that homeowner has already been treating his well?
That homeowner has
Or-
already been treating, correct.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, there is carbon on that well, which will treat trihalomethanes.
As I recall, that I don't know where it is, but that lot is adjacent or close to the pool area?
Correct.
It's just
But we do have a well. One of the potential things that we were looking at was whether or not the pool might be leaking into the ground, or if there were discharges from the pool to the ground surface that might be impacting the well. So we have a separate monitor well located between the drinking water well and the pool. That well is free of any concentrations does not have any chlorinated solvents, any chloroform of any kind or trihalomethanes.
And just, I think everybody knows that, but the home has a public water supply, so it's chlorinated water coming through the public water supply to that home, I assume.
I'm not sure that I'm not
They're not
certain.
well?
I thought it was.
Oh, it's well.
It's
But there is, I see, of course it's a well.
it's a private drinking water.
But there's public water.
Available?
In the road, I believe there is public water lines.
Okay.
Yes, it is available to the area.
He's not hooked up.
It was the old greenskeeper house when it was a private golf course. For a while, they used it as the greenskeeper.
I believe it's the lot that
It's right attached to the
carved
parking
out
lot.
of all of this in 2010.
Exactly.
Right.
When we bought it,
We
it was
sold
sold at the same
that,
time.
right?
Right.
It was sold at the same time. We didn't sell it. It was sold at the same time as we bought.
He sold something else. Got it, okay.
So it is possible, because there is city water supply in the road, it's possible that there is leaking from those lines that might be, again, it's inconclusive, but it's clearly a chlorinated source of some
But
type.
it's not the course, it's not the golf course.
There is nothing that we
There's
know at this
nothing
point
there
that
that would
indicates the golf
contribute,
course
so, okay.
in any way.
All right.
Yep.
So there is no need for further testing? I mean, because back in the beginning of this,
Yep.
you gave out something that was significant hazard concern, and you gave us an amount to remediate it, right? Then
Yes.
after so many years, you say that there is
Well, why don't we
nothing to
let
be
him finish
worried,
so we can
worried
get to
about?
the end? Because I don't know what the conclusion is.
I'm sorry, if you could repeat the last part?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
What did you say? I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead and
Wait,
ask your
yeah, finish.
question.
Oh, okay. So I'm saying it's sort of like very hard to understand why after so many years that significant hazard is
You
no
can see it.
longer there
What the state
without
require-
any remediation.
The state has very specific criteria for reporting what they call a significant environmental hazard, which is the SEH.
Mm-hmm.
That is based on relatively conservative criteria because it has to fit all circumstances
Right.
across the state.
I can understand that.
So in this case, it wasn't so much that the significance of the risk is that the state it's significant enough the state wants to be notified. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a significant health risk or an
I see.
imminent health risk. So when the concentration was identified in the well initially, in accordance with the regulations and the requirements, the DEP was notified, DEEP, of what they term a significant environmental hazard because there was a detection in the well. Once we've did an additional assessment, looked into what was going on there,
When did you do this?
Well, there's a monitor well. Again, we positioned a monitor well. There was some concern whether or not the pool might be leaking
Yeah,
from the golf course property.
right.
We put a monitor well in between.
So this is the beginning of the process, like back in 2012? When did you put that?
This was, I'd have to go back and look exactly when that well was installed. I don't recall
Oh,
the
okay,
time frame,
okay,
but around the time the well was sampled.
Okay,
So the absence of any concentrations in that monitor well suggests that there's not a complete pathway between the pool and the well.
I see.
So ruling that out, there is the possibility, well, two things were done. One, the well was then put on treatment, which removes the significant environmental hazard. So that expense or that mitigation was performed.
Mhm.
The second part of that is that there was some possibility that the well had been updated or modified in some way. It's common at that time to do what we call shock the well, where you essentially add bleach or you add chlorine to the well. And that's exactly what causes the chloroform and the trihalomethanes that we're finding. So there's that possible link in that situation. So at the time it was identified, the health department and the DEEP were involved, and all parties are of the opinion that treatment on that well at this time is perfectly acceptable and mitigates any significant environmental hazard. So there was a process, but that process has essentially been done at this point.
All right. And you don't need any, doesn't the DEP require you to do this over time?
What we're recommending is that the owner of the
Can I just clarify for a moment?
Absolutely.
Right now, we're talking about just this one private home, and Scott will be talking about the entire property and the entire project. He hasn't gotten to that. He was
I'm
just
sorry.
giving us a
I
little
thought
update on what-
I was talking about the whole property because that was what was given a significant hazard notice.
So now we'll vote.
Well, there were two separate issues. These are two separate properties. There's the
Okay.
golf club,
Got it.
and then there's this.
Okay, I thought you were
That's
already
residence.
talking about the golf course.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I did start with the golf course. I went out to this well.
Yeah. Okay.
But absolutely. Okay. So, following the meeting last month, I believe it was April 28th, we've been in conversation with the DEEP, and we've been speaking with the local health department, as well as with the town. What we recommend going forward, based on concerns that were voiced during that meeting, is to go forward with the.
The wrap.
I'm sorry.
The wrap.
The SEH. The wrap is done. It's the SEH, or significant environmental hazard area of the property, that was earlier, or identified at an earlier time, was since fenced in. A form of mitigation or protection was implemented to prevent any potential risk from existing on the golf course. We recommend going forward with that SEH remediation in order to, that will fulfill the obligation to start remediation, which under the DEEP guidelines, the state would like to see remediation started. It's a technical aspect. It's not a health risk aspect to this project, and it's something that it can simply be removal of one shovelful of soil. It can be remediation of the entire property. There's really nothing dictating or indicating the level of remediation that would need to be done. But there is this isolated area of what we call an SEH. It's where pesticides are present in soil at slightly higher concentrations than other areas of the property, but enough to have triggered what the state calls the SEH, which again doesn't necessarily mean there's a risk. It just means the state wants to be notified. In addition to that, we recommend conducting some additional testing to address concerns that were voiced last month up near the halfway house area, which is basically just to put in 3 additional wells in order to further confirm where the plume is and what the concentrations are. Now, our recent testing, again, indicates there's no health risks in any of the wells. No concentrations are above drinking water standards. All of those wells located on the golf course property have been situated in what we would term worst case locations. We bias the initial investigations to those areas to determine the concentrations in groundwater. So if those concentrations do not exceed, we do not expect, there's no reason to expect, the concentrations would get higher as you move away from potential source areas. So what we're proposing is to put additional wells in, 3 wells, further delineate the extent of any concentrations, and again, begin to generate and provide the supplemental data necessary to prepare a remedial action plan for that area of the property.
Okay. So are you also going to submit to us a financial proposal with this? What it's going to cost the town?
We have provided costs for that, for each of those areas separately, for the town to consider.
I have not seen it, so.
Well, we have that under the funding request.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
I just provided those numbers, actually. Just
when did you do that?
Just shortly before this meeting.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep.
Just wanted to know. I thought I missed something big.
No.
Thank you.
You don't miss anything.
Any other questions for Scott? Anything else?
So I think what you're telling us now, and we've been hearing in layman's terms, because that's all I really understand.
Sure.
The testing you're doing within the confines of the country club boundaries are showing that the contaminants are contained, and they haven't migrated. And they certainly haven't migrated to neighboring properties.
Correct.
Is that what you're telling? I mean, because we have no monitoring wells on any neighboring properties. But because of the results you're getting from our monitor wells on the property, you're confident that there's no migration off. Is that what you're telling us? Or?
Yeah, the state has very specific criteria that we compare to determine whether or not concentrations in groundwater are safe or not safe. if there's an action that needs to be taken. With the concentrations that we're seeing in the groundwater on the golf course, there's no action required for the groundwater, and therefore there would not be any, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me mute that. There's no actions that would be required. If there's no actions near the source areas and where the release is occurring, there's no actions required off of the property.
And that's the conclusion. So you can make that conclusion without doing any testing of.
We can make that conclusion. Yes.
You can and you have, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Scott, if I heard you correctly, I don't remember how many homes that abut the property were given the contamination letter, but you're saying all those homes won't be getting the new result letter stating that you found nothing in the wells that were recently tested. Is that correct? So
That's
the
correct.
same homes will receive that letter from HRP or?
Correct.
Thank you.
So, but there's been no testing at those properties, right?
There's been no testing conducted
that
at those
you've
homes.
done, either monitoring wells or well testing or anything.
Correct.
No.
Okay.
Anything else?
Last question I have for you. So I don't really know what it means, but the SCH that you're about, I heard you say basically the requirement is that you start with at least a shovel.
Correct.
Kind of. Do you have a plan yet on what you think and when you think that might be done?
As far as, I'm sorry. As far
Whether it's a shovel, whatever the
Scope of work and
SCH.
time.
It's 17,
Yeah.
yes. It's 17 cubic yards, I'm sorry, 17 tons of soil.
17 tons?
Yep, that we expect to be removed, roughly 10 yards or so. It's in an area measuring roughly 10 by 10. We're required to go to a depth of approximately 2 feet. And this is the area, this was determined previously because the area had to be cordoned off and fenced.
That has the fence around it
Yep.
currently.
So we know the extents, we know the depths, we know the amount of soil that needs to be removed.
But you seem to imply that the state only requires us to dig a shovel full, and now we've started the remediation.
Well,
but what is the remediation? I mean, are you suggesting that we perform that remediation?
Well, what I'm recommending is that the SCH soils be removed.
Okay, fully.
It's fully,
At
that's 17
17
yards of
tons.
material. Yes. I'm sorry, 17 tons.
At the meeting, there was some concern raised about where that soil would be when you dig it up. Would it have to sit on somebody's property or some adjoining? How long would that take and what would the process look like?
We've looked at our initial plans were to take that soil and stage it in a particular location, but due to those concerns, we revisited the approach in order to address that issue and the concern. What we'll do is we'll bring in a small dumpster. We'll put that in the area of the maintenance facility. We'll load the soil into that dumpster. That dumpster will be lined, covered. There'll be some additional characterization conducted in an attempt to reduce costs for the project. The largest cost for the removal of that SCH material is the hazardous waste disposal. This material will go off-site as hazardous waste just because of the concentrations. So what we're going to do is once that material is removed from the ground, it'll go into the roll-off, it'll be mixed, we'll collect samples of that material. Those samples will potentially, due to the mixing, be below hazardous concentrations, and then we'll be able to remove that material, essentially treat it off-site as a non-hazardous material, which will reduce costs, which would be good. But this will also address the issues with the parking lot having the material on that property.
Approximately how long do you think that process takes? So that the dumpster will stay on site until it can be mixed and then tested? Any idea?
2 to 4 weeks, roughly, from start to finish.
Thank you.
The excavation is about a 1-day excavation, so the entire process would be 2 to 4 weeks. And again,
Any
majority of
questions?
that time, the work will be completed, the majority of that time will be awaiting the analytical results and scheduling for that roll-off to be taken to the facility.
So, Scott, we go to public comment at 6 o'clock. If you wouldn't mind staying, because when we
Sure.
get to the fund transfer and perhaps some of the other discussion, we might have additional questions for you.
Sure,
Okay?
absolutely.
So if there are other questions, let's hold them. We'll go to public comment, and then when we get to the fund transfers, we can talk about this more. And there may be other discussion on the country club as well. Thank you very
Scott.
much. Okay, so we're now at public comments. Anyone here for public comment? Steve?
My name is Steve Miller. I own the property on Litchfield Turnpike, 1768. Former resident of Woodbridge for 35 years. And I'm here to talk about the golf course and the property. I was having a conversation with a colleague who owns commercial real estate in town, who in our conversation ended up going towards the, what do you think about the golf course? And he asked my opinion and of value, basically, and I told him what I thought, and he asked me if I would come speak to the Selectmen, and here I am. So I did research. I talked to appraisers, other brokers, investors. That's the background for what I'm going to speak about tonight. And what I'm going to speak about is my opinion of the value of the country club as it is today with a conservation easement. First, I want to say that it's a beautiful piece of property, and I think Woodbridge is a great town. And I see a few different possible options for selling the country club property with an easement. The first is selling the whole property, clubhouse, golf course, the extra land. And I think that, I'll call it an as-is sale, but with the caveat that it will be cleaned up by the town in any of the instances I talk about. I think that you could sell it today somewhere in the $2 to $3 million range. And quite honestly, I spoke to an investor recently when I started doing this, and I think that you could sell it tomorrow for $2 million cash without any problem. That's, I think that the second would be to sell the clubhouse area separate from the golf course. I think the golf course could be rearranged and go back to the way it was, where the clubhouse was sort of on Johnson Road, and you could rearrange the holes. And depending on what the town would allow for the clubhouse area, I think that would, selling it separately with a little bit of discretion on what would go there, and my thoughts were maybe a catering facility or a bed and breakfast, maybe a professional office building, like I think architects or something like that, small conference center, some kind of a private club. The uses would be and could be limited by planning and zoning, by the town. And I think that the value could be a little higher if you separated it maybe up. I think I said $2 to $3 million before. Now maybe $2.5 to $3.5 million. I think you get a little bit more. And then the third, I guess, option for the town would be just to sell off the clubhouse area and keep the golf course and keep it as open space or continue the golf operation. And my guess is that you could probably get more than $500,000 for the clubhouse and the parking area, maybe close to $1 million, again, depending on what the town would allow to go there and what use would be allowed. In my conversations with appraisers and other brokers that have been involved in golf course sales in the last 5 years, we have all determined that selling a golf course with a restriction lowers the value about 20%. So if we thought it was worth $3 million in the open market, the restriction price would be $2.4 million. And I think that, it's a trade-off. It depends what the town wants. In a way, we're lucky to have a comp right in town, which was Oak Lane. First half of the property sold for $1.1 million, and the new owner obviously had to put money into the building. Somebody buying the Woodbridge facility, if it was sold, would have to put money into the building. And they're finishing up the sale now with the Baldwin family for the other, almost half of the land, and that's also in the same price range as the first half. So I think that they sold their property, distress sale, for, in the end, I think that the owner's going to end up with it for around 2.2 or 2.3 million, and he had to put a good amount into the building and the course and so on and so forth. So it's a great local comp. The time might be a little bit different. I think that the stats say that there are fewer rounds played right now. I'm not sure if that's true or not in our immediate area. I don't have that information. And I thought about, if the town wanted to sell it, what would I do? I'm a commercial broker. It's sort of what I do. I sell development land. I sell investment properties. I do a lot of different things. And I guess my suggestion would be not typical of what's gone on with the town previously. I would suggest, whether it's me or somebody else, that you hire a commercial broker. That broker would create marketing material that would describe the property and uses that the town might consider. That broker probably has access to different folks than when the town does an RFP or something like that. I would set a date and call for offers. I would put it out without a price. That's what I would recommend. I've seen it done on many different types of properties, including golf courses. It's gotten a lot of responses. And whether you take the price or not, it will give everybody a real good idea what the perceived value is of that property. I don't have too much more for you. I'm happy to discuss this further if you'd like. Personally, I've played the golf course many times. It's a great course. It's a beautiful course. And on a personal level, I think that one of the things that attracted me to Woodbridge when I came many years ago and that I loved while I lived here was the open spaces, things like the golf course. And I think it's a selling point to some potential home buyers coming to Woodbridge. So I'm open for questions if that's part of what happens tonight, but I'm also open to conversation afterwards if you would like to.
So Steve, we don't do a lot of question and answer and public comment. We had some discussion if you wanted to be on the agenda. We would have put you on the agenda, but it was Jim Urbano asked, and he said that he preferred for you to come to public comment. I just want to be clear that what you're saying is if we decide that what we want to do is keep this as a golf course, you have proposed a course of action, and I think we've all heard that, or understand that, if that's the decision of this committee, this board. I do want to say, personally for me, that to get $2 million or so after we do the cleanup, including the cost of cleanup for this property, to keep it as a golf course, does not compare to a proposal to have senior housing, which people in the town would like, and keep over 100 acres of open space for the town. This would be selling the entire property. But we understand if we decide that golf course is what we want, that you would certainly be very interested in the listing, and other people would as well. Sure. And if you'd like to come back and be on the agenda, if you let me know, we can have further discussion. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Can I just say something real quick? I think that would be helpful because then we could ask questions.
I think so, but this was Jim Urbano's decision.
Yeah,
So-
No, it was my decision, really. It was my
Well,
decision.
It doesn't matter.
But I'm happy to come back if you'd like me to. I'm open to discuss it. And as you and I have discussed separately, I'm here and I have information. I'm ready to share it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you for the time.
Yeah.
Deke?
Hi, Deke Hotchkiss, 25 Fairgrounds Road. I had delivered, or, well, by mail, a recommendation that the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission approved April 25th. And I just thought I'd read it briefly here and make some comments about it. And basically, our recommendation was that negotiations with Billy Casper Golf be immediately entered into with the goal of entering a new contract by June 30th. The background on this, as I've mentioned in other meetings, is that, there is a significant portion of the existing business, about $250,000 in revenues, is related to outings that are principally for charitable organizations. These organizations have these outings every year. It's a key component in their fundraising activities. And if you tell them, well, or, if they had an outing today and they said, as they often do, well, okay, when are we going to get a contract for next year? And you can, all you can really say is that, well, we don't know about next year, then, immediately they start fishing for another venue because obviously, again, it's critical to their fundraising activities. The other thing is, a general observation is that, where we are right now really hurts the current sales of memberships and outings. That is to say, excuse me, these customers, are actually basically sort of looking at this thing, like a membership or an outing as like a multi-year, sort of endeavor. You don't want to join a golf course and then, have to join another golf course next year, or the same thing with the outings. The outings are frequently multi-year sorts of commitments, and, if they don't know if Woodbridge is going to be around in 2017, then obviously they're reluctant to commit to 2016. And, obviously as, time goes by, money, or the value declines. So that was our concern. I also, just as an update on the activity year to date, through May 10th, we've had more rounds than any of the first 5 years that the golf course has been operated by Billy Casper Golf, and more dollars of revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Amy Morella, 184 Rimmon Road. I'm here with some documents because it's my understanding that the Board of Selectmen doesn't necessarily get documents in their packets. So if you could pass those around, Susan, there's enough to go all the way to Joe Dye. And I'd just like to run through for you what those documents are. The documents... Yes, HRP and the contamination of the Country Club of Woodbridge, yes. And I obtained them through the Freedom of Information Act. The reason I'm passing them out, and I would appreciate if you would pass them around, is because I actually want to point out the highlighted items, which I realize you're getting documents that are multiple pages, and I just wanted to help you facilitate your reviewing them. The first document is a document which is has attached, it's an email to Tony Genovese from HRP in 2012, but it has attached a letter that also should be at the town because it's a letter from the Department of Environmental Protection to Ed Sheehy back in September 2009. And this letter specifies what the requirements are under the Transfer Act since the town had just bought the golf course at that time. And what I've highlighted on those documents is that the final investigation report, which is known as the Phase 3, was supposed to be submitted to the commissioner within 2 years of the date of the letter. That means September 2011. And remediation of the establishment was to be initiated within 3 years of the date of the letter. That would be September 2012. And remediation, as we learned in the meeting when DEP came, as well as Department of Public Health, is the actual initiation of cleanup. It is not testing, as I believe HRP from what Brian Washburn said at one meeting that where he came to speak to you all back in March. There's also supposed to have been annual progress reports on the cleanup beginning in the 4th year, which would have been 2013. The next document is the letter which was sent by HRP on behalf of the town to Patrick Bowe, the gentleman who came from DEEP, regarding the significant environmental hazard at the country club in the maintenance area. And at that time, the representation was that under normal circumstances, funding for the project, which is, if you read the whole letter, referring to the cleanup of the significant environmental hazard, would be available July 1, 2012. The next document is actually really 3 documents. It's a transmittal from Tom Cecilia to Tony Genovese on March 22nd of 2016 this year, in which he says he was able to locate 2 executive summaries that were put together for the April 2012 town meeting, one of which has a breakdown for the cost for the site as a whole, and the other is for the maintenance area. The first one that's actually attached is the proposed cleanup of the maintenance area. Again, in this document, HRP, the consultant, starts out by saying the Connecticut Property Transfer Program requires initiation of cleanup within 3 years. And then goes on to say that the significant environmental hazard notification associated with soil impact in the maintenance area warrants immediate attention due to the shallow depth of contamination. With respect to the document that cites the potential for cleaning up the entire golf course, it not only reiterates that cleanup was supposed to initiate within 3 years, but it says that both the preparation of a remedial action plan for the entire site and excavation and disposal of contaminated soil would be the cost for those 2 items would be incurred during the first year of remediation. Understanding, therefore, that that work would be accomplished, you would have both the remedial action plan and the excavation and disposal of contaminated soil accomplished within 1 year. Now, I did not have copies. I'd be happy to make for you copies, but I do want to read to you all so you hear this, that in an email that was sent by Brian Washburn of HRP to Tony Genovese on October 9th, 2015, Mr. Brian says he's gone through our records, and here is what I have found. He notes that the remediation cost, some of the remediation costs which you've heard, the cost for the maintenance area is around $180,000. The cost for the entire site is $655,000. Of note, I would say that it says, quote, going through our records, I found that the Phase 3 report remained in draft form, although it was ready for signature, pending receipt of final comments from the town. Likewise, the RAP is in draft form. So as of October 2015, 2 of the documents that were supposed to have been submitted to the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection quite a while back, 3 years ago or more, were actually still in draft form. There was documentation that Ellen signed the necessarily transmittal forms in March 2016. So that was when the Phase 3 report and the RAP were actually submitted to the Department of Environmental Protection. I'm glad to see that things are finally moving forward. I'd understood HRP would be after final comments, so I did not hear you speak directly, but I understand you're now recommending cleanup of the significant environmental hazard in the maintenance area, which is good. Still, I believe what needs to move forward as well is to continuing preparing the RAP for the other areas. The next priority, as stated by HRP at April 28th, was the halfway house, which is at the intersection of Johnson and Sonia Road. And I hope you will, now that all of this has been brought to light, that you will act quickly. The one thing I want to add, on a personal note, I've been distressed by the reaction of you, Ellen, of you, Susan, and of you, Jerry, in an earlier Board of Selectmen meeting where I viewed you as attacking Maria Kane for raising these issues. I thought that was really unfortunate. The reality is I've been first selectman. Let me just finish. I said that was my review.
You are out of order.
I'm not out of order.
Your opinion, these are matters of public record, And we're not going to get into that now. If you think that's appropriate, you can challenge us at some other time. But questioning people in that way is inappropriate at this meeting. You may disagree, but we're not going to go there. And if you have anything else to say substantively, you're welcome to do it.
I would merely say that I think a better course would be to thank Maria because she has brought out an important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad that we're out of this. Bravo.
I would like to say, Amy was not here at the time, that we mentioned this evening that it appeared that remediation was to have begun earlier. There was something happened around 2011, 2012. We don't know what it is. We are proceeding to commence remediation. HRP has been in touch with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection and coordinating with them. And although Amy has raised again the delay in the start, she did say at our public meeting that she's not saying it's a huge concern, but there is a document from the state. This is not about public health. This is about meeting technical requirements, and we do want to meet technical requirements, but I want to be absolutely clear, it's not a public health issue. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. I'm Adrienne Michi-Smith. I live at 17 Ansonia Road in Woodbridge. I have a question for the board. Maybe I've missed something, forgive me, but I'm just wondering what the board is intending with regard to starting negotiations with Billy Casper Golf for the year 2017.
That will be subject of discussion later in the meeting, Adrienne, so if you stay, we'll be discussing it.
And will we be given an answer?
We'll be discussing it. I don't know exactly where the discussion will go.
Okay. The only other thing that I want to mention is, Ms. Galatar, you mentioned the fact that the sale of the property for 55 and older housing would, I think what you said is, and correct me if I'm incorrect, if I'm wrong, would bring in a certain amount of money, perhaps more than what Mr. Miller said if the property was sold elsewhere. I'd like to address something that was said at previous meetings with regard to Mr. Grogan's letter. Was it Mr. Grogan's who wrote the letter about the zoning change? The impression I got at that meeting was that the board thought that what that meant was that just because there was a zoning change here, it would not happen elsewhere in the town. As you all know, I know attorneys. I'm not one myself, and the opinions of the people that I've spoken to say that once a precedent is set, it's going to be very difficult to keep that type of zoning change happening in the rest of the town. And I think that this should be very clear to the public. It would change the quality of the nature of our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
David Lober, Whipple Road. I'm here to talk about the country club, which is on the agenda. I have been trying to get a sense of the community to find out what the feelings are about the golf course. To that end, I have started an online petition, and the response has been overwhelming. I had tried to meet earlier with First Selectman Stella, but because of problems with her scheduling, I was unable to do so. I thought I would raise this for presentation and possibly discussion at this public forum. I have copies of this petition I would like to give to members of the board. I also have copies of the 243 signatures that I got online, and I also have another 40-some-odd signatures that I got going door to door. I would also like to read just a few comments that I got from people who answered this petition. May I do that?
Sure.
Okay.
If we could leave the documents with Mrs. Shaw, and she'll distribute them.
The one with the handwritten signatures, I will need back.
Well, we'll just, do you have?
There are copies for
Okay, so we'll distribute them at the end.
So the petition is it's a short statement, and it says, there is no funding for the golf operation of the 2017 budget. More importantly, this is was to my knowledge when I wrote this. Things may have changed. There have been no meaningful negotiations between the office of the First Selectman and Billy Casper Golf, operator of the course, 400 Woodbridge residents use the course. It is a practice facility and home course for the Amity golf team. It is used by local charities to host events and generate revenues, and it provides jobs and utilizes services that contribute to the local economy. The Country Club of Woodbridge Commission has recommended to First Selectman Scalatar that a contract for 2017 should be pursued immediately. As a stakeholder in the viability of the club, the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission should be directly involved in the negotiations. Please join me and the other concerned citizens who wish to see golf continue after December 2016 and demand that meaningful negotiations with Billy Casper Golf begin immediately with the intent of keeping the golf course open. Now, the response was really overwhelming. I sent it to the world. I sent it to, well, who did I send it to? Okay, let me not be facetious.
You don't have to answer that,
okay,
but
I will
it's
tell
just
you.
important to...
I will tell you who I sent it to. I sent it, first of all, to the membership of the Woodbridge Country Club. That was a given. Okay. I sent it to members of the pool. Okay. I sent it to the Facebook account of the Woodbridge Bethany Residents Alliance. I sent it as Woodbridge Bethany Residents Forum. I sent it to Muffy German to distribute. I sent it to Roger Sherman to distribute. I went door to door in several neighborhoods. Okay. Okay.
So you wanted to read a couple of comments?
I did. I wanted to read a couple of comments.
Yeah, we just would like to move ahead. So if you have a couple,
I'm not going to burden you, but there are a couple here which I think are germane. Here's one from. This is from Janet Barilli. Right, Berlin. Okay. This is the one and only facility I use in town. I have no children and never have used the school system we have, which cost me many thousands of dollars in real estate taxes. We receive no services to speak of other than snow removal. The town has plenty of walking trails, ball courts, tennis courts, and open space that generate zero revenue for the town and cost the town money to maintain when they see fit to do so. The golf course, after my review of the finances from a source, is no different. It just about breaks even, so other than a loss of tax revenue, there is no cost to the town. So the town's residents should be allowed to enjoy the facility, which they are obviously helping to support, both by their membership and the taxes that they have to pay.
Who did you say that was from?
This is from...
It's from me.
It's from... Okay, there we go. And I apologize, I attempted to print these out. I was unsuccessful. I just read one or two more here. Sorry. Here's one from, oh, that's from my wife. I'll forget that one. Okay. Okay.
You need a 12-year-old to help you.
I do need a 12-year-old.
I get that.
Okay. I love playing the course. I also coach the high school golf team. Loss of this facility would be devastating to young golfers in Woodbridge and the surrounding towns. Here's another one that says, and this is from someone who lives in Derby. The course as it stands is the best use of open space and in the long term will provide an income source to the town. And this one is from somebody who comes from Cheshire. The residents could preserve their environment and develop a park rec facility for all ages year-round, repair the roof, develop indoor senior activities, fitness center, etc. A 9-hole golf course and condo development would not attract avid golfers who want 18, and Amity would lose their whole course. Seniors would prefer less hilly terrain to live, so condos would attract younger, less avid golfers. Okay,
I think,
so
I think people can access this online and read them.
They can,
Is that right?
yes,
Okay,
they can.
so
Okay.
I think you
So that,
made your point.
I'm done with that. But the
Okay.
sense is that people use it, they want it, they feel it's an asset to the town. People have also commented they moved here because of the golf course. One or two, not a huge number.
Thank you very much.
The second thing, I have just one more very brief point. The second thing is I'd like to raise the issue of the clubhouse. I know it has fallen in disrepair. There is a responsibility by the board, by the town, selectmen, to maintain the assets of the town. It's a fiduciary responsibility. And I would like to urge the board to move on that responsibility and preserve at least from deteriorating that building. and I understand there are some negotiations, early part of negotiations. I've heard this from some people in the Democratic Town Committee and some other people involved, and also that there may be some movement on the thought of what to do with the clubhouse, but hopefully that'll be discussed later on. Thank you very much.
I just will mention about the petition. We've done an analysis of the, at least the responses that came to Town Hall, and there were some, I think it was slightly more than half were from non-Woodbridge residents. The overwhelming reason for supporting the petition by non-Woodbridge residents was because they wanted to see golf continue. The majority of the Woodbridge residents wanted to see preservation of open space. It was not about golf among those. I'm not saying there were none, but that was not the predominant. We have an analysis. I don't have it with me. Jeff? Oh, excuse me, one other thing. Janet, are you going to speak tonight? Because I did want to say something about the rest of your letter, if you were not.
Go ahead.
Just to find it again. Sorry, Jeff, just 1 second. Janet was a distinguished member of our Board of Finance, and in her letter about the club, encouraging us to continue it for now, she said she was not in favor of buying the property to begin with when she was on the Board of Finance. She was asked by the selectmen, the first selectman then, to support it, and that, quote, Janet is saying we would unload the property in a few years. I was assured we would not keep this property and that it would be resold and not used for open space. And then she also goes on to say, I think the town should try to sell as much of the property as need be to get back the $7 million plus they invested, if that is possible. So she has a very broad range of issues regarding the country club, including the ones that were pointed out.
I'm going to analyze the comments, and I'll see if we agree.
Okay, sure. Jeff?
Jeff Hughes, 88 Woodfield Road. I'm also a member of the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission. When I started on the commission, I was at the tail end of MGM Golf, is in the transition to Billy Casper Golf. And we don't really need to relive that issue, but since then, Billy Casper Golf has taken the golf course and done a complete 180. They made it financially sound, and the course is the best it's ever been. It's just absolutely beautiful. I firmly believe, after studying the financials of the golf course and also the industry in Southern Connecticut of golf, that it's an extremely viable option to keep 18 holes of golf going for this town. I think it's a huge draw. I think the comments from out of state and out of town just prove that there's an interest in this. And what this club does for the town is astronomical. I don't think we can even measure it. These golfers, they come in, they stop at our gas station, they eat at our restaurants. They're interested in our wineries or breweries. It's just draw for this town. I think that's how you grow an economy. I think developing this property is a quick Band-Aid solution. It's short-sighted. I also like to pose a challenge to any one of these members of this board. If any one of these members think that development is the right way to go on this course, please go up to the 5th green on Sunset and look around and say, cluster housing belongs here. I bet no one could do that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sean Rowland, Fire Chief in 67 Center Road. Just here tonight to, I want to show you something that where the technology is going in the fire service. This is the new air pack masks that are going to be coming out. This has got a thermal imager camera built right onto the mask. And when you look inside, you can actually see, if you look down with your right eye, you'll see the images of everybody. So when you're searching in the fire, you're still going to need the actual thermal imaging camera, but this gives the ability to have everybody have a tool within their mask, so when they go in, they can quick scan a room if they're in a different part of the home or building and see if anybody's down. So I brought this tonight to see if anybody wants to take a look at it, to find out exactly where we're going to go, or where everybody's going with it. It's actually a pretty neat tool. It just came out. It's going through NFPA, and it should be approved in the next 30 to 60 days. So when we're looking to get new air packs, this is where we're more headed towards. So if anybody has any questions on it, it's got to go back tomorrow. It's a demo mask, but I wanted to show the board, since we come and ask for money, but we really don't show what we're getting. Yeah.
Grandson.
are these going to be required by?
They're not required now, but the technology, this is the way it's going. Right now, what it is the piece on the side of the mask is the actual imaging camera, and the part inside where you're looking is the viewing screen. It's all Bluetooth technology. So they're hoping within the next year or so, the radio, instead of having to key up the radio and yell through the mask to the radio, it's all going to be Bluetooth capable, where you're going to be able to hit your button and you're going to be able to talk right in your mask, even though your radio is here. So I thought it's pretty interesting for everybody to see the technology, where the technology of the fire service is actually going.
I am your father. I mean, I'm sorry I asked for it.
I just, did you want to say anything about it, else about it, Sean?
No, just about the mask right now.
Just as long as Sean is here, it reminds me, there was a rumor going around that there was an improper cutting down of trees by the fire department. Just so everyone knows, that is totally not the case. It was a public works project that was approved by the town, just so everybody knows. In case you hear anything about it, there was no issue.
Ash trees you could improperly cut down if you want.
There were a bunch of ash trees at the firehouse a couple weeks ago, and they posed a danger. And I met with Warren Connors, and Warren thought they had to come down because they posed a risk to the building, to the people if they were on the patio, and they also took trees down on the walking trail side because they posed a threat of falling down on the walking trail. So I think they took a total of 14 trees down in that area, and it opened it right up for that whole buffer. So what we did last night, the volunteer fire department purchased trees, and we put in 12 trees last night, and we're looking to put some more trees in to fill that buffer back in. So there's some privacy, and so it's not so bare.
Thank you. Thank you to the volunteers for doing that.
Not ash trees.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Margaret?
Margaret Hamilton, 28 Park Lane. This is actually probably a good segue after Sean. I just wanted to say, we get the update on the Employee of the Month. I love that it was William. He works incredibly hard. I love getting that information. We don't see all the work that gets done. We don't see the people that do it all the time, and we benefit from all of it. Certainly William is here long before we get up and well after, we're all gone. So I wanted to say that. I also wanted to say, we can hear the fire alarm or the fire notice, when it goes off. And the amount of times that our volunteers go out and the amount that they do in the heat, in the cold, freezing water, it's just amazing. And it seems like there's been a lot more activity lately, or maybe I'm just hearing it because the windows are all open finally. But I just wanted to say that every time they go out, it's an unknown, and it's a lot of work, and they're volunteers. And I just wanted to say thank you. That's it.
Wonderful. Gina's great. It's important to know.
I'm Gina Barafati at 6 Canterbury Lane in Wilton, and my family owns the property at Oak Lane at 1027 Racebrook Road and 1116 Johnson Road. I just want to take a minute once again tonight to correct some information given. The first gentleman who spoke has the deal, if you might call it, substantially incorrect. If you want to know what the deal is, I'm happy to share it with you. Give me a call privately. And when we close at the end of June, it will be public record, and you can all look it up if you want to. Last month, I was here to correct a statement by Mr. Hotchkiss, which unfortunately he did not take the opportunity tonight to correct himself. We are not closing this summer. We are purchasing the rest of the property this summer, and we are here to stay. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
I'll offer my correction on that, Gina. Yeah, I'm sorry, and that it would rise to this level, but nevertheless, what I said is available on Facebook. Or I'm sorry, not Facebook, YouTube. I get these things confused. Okay. And what I said was that your lease...
If you could face this way, because you'll be on the...
And what I said was that your lease expired this summer. That's all I said.
No. That is incomplete, if not incorrect. I stand corrected.
It's perfectly correct.
Kathy Wick, Raymond Road. My original intention this evening was to urge you to consider negotiating with Billy Casper to see what sort of terms could be arranged for the future. I'm glad to hear that we'll learn something about that later on in the meeting. But one thing I'd like to also urge you is to involve the public in these conversations, obviously not directly with Billy Casper, but to get more of a sense from the public of where the public stands. I think many in the public who I speak with hundreds of people, both on Facebook and in person, about this issue, and many people's position has evolved. I'm actually hearing more support for keeping the land, whether a golf course or not, than there was back in 2011 when a proposal to sell was defeated 2-1. So I don't believe there's been a public meeting, an open public meeting, where the full public had the opportunity to comment and ask questions about the country club in quite some time, certainly over a year at least. I don't think there's been a public forum where public could ask questions, where members of the Country Club Commission could describe how the finances have improved, et cetera. So the other thing that I'd like to say is that I hope that this decision will be made with an up or down vote in the Board of Selectmen, and that it won't be just by inaction a decision is made by default.
Thank you. Janet?
I really wasn't prepared to say anything. I just was coming to mostly listen, but I'll comment on the second part of that. I did originally feel that we should not be buying land at $7 million, when in my heart I didn't believe it was worth $7 million, and I don't believe it's worth $7 million today. That being said, I truly do enjoy the course. It is a pleasure to see such young people, townspeople. These are not kids from out of town mostly. These are young people from our high school and even smaller, spending time at that course and playing golf instead of either getting into trouble or sitting at home behind a computer all night. So that being said, I don't think we're ever going to get our $7 million back. As you know, I'm a CPA. I have advised a lot of people about buying, selling, and all kinds of things like that. So when we bought this, and I knew it was going to cost a lot of money, and I knew interest rates at that time were not so cheap as they are now, I wasn't thrilled with the idea, except that I was told it was going to be a short-term fix to a problem that was perceived to be a problem at the time. I think we have to look at the finances. I think we have to look at whether or not we are really losing money, because I don't think we're losing the money people perceive that we are losing from just chatter. I think that there's a way to make money there. And if that were the case, then we have to see how much the money we could make there will support that piece of property or a part of the property. It doesn't have to be the whole property. So I just wanted to explain, you can't write all that in an email, especially when I'm trying to do some work that I have to do for clients who pay me. But there's a lot of pluses to that course that are intangible. Like I said, if you were able to go there, as I was there last night, and my husband and I played with a young man from the Amity team, and then we gave him a ride back to the clubhouse afterwards so he wouldn't have to carry his heavy bag that he'd been trying to carry through about 9 holes. So it is really delightful. And I don't have children, but I tell you, it's just great. It's just great that these kids have a venue for that. But there's got to be a balance with the finances. So, and I think there can be. I just think, the clubhouse could have been put to better use. I just had an event over at Oak Lane 2 weeks ago on a Sunday for my niece. And not that I don't love Oak Lane, because I used to be a member there, but I would to love to have had that same event over at Woodbridge. And had we had that building in better shape, there's a lot of events that people have in town. When I went over there, I mean, if you saw the number of people going in to look at the place, to book weddings and showers and bat mitzvahs, and it just went on and on and on. So there is a way to make money. It's just, I think we just have to sit down and get the right people together that can visualize what can be done and how that money can come about.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dr. Michael Broderick, 5 Old Still Road. I wanted to bring a few things in front of the board because I think some of the worst things are starting to happen because of the Democratic position, Ms. Skalatar's position, and the other Democrats on the board with our property, the village associate property down in the village. Because you've been hyper-focused on developing the country club, you've now given the developer the excuse that you're going to be competing with our age-restricted zone that's already there. And of course, we were brought in the last zoning meeting a horrible proposal of high-density apartments, rentals, exactly the wrong thing for the neighborhood as far as the residents are concerned, and as far as I think most people in the town are concerned, causing an increase in our schools. And we really have to get away from this thought process, and we really should be focusing on having proper development in the village district, because that's the key parcel that's really left in our town that can really change the vision of our town and make it a nicer town, make it a town with a center like a Madison, like a Guilford, which we currently lack. And I really think the global view of this group is not right, because you really are neglecting the most important parcel. Secondly, the other thing that I've noted is that Ms. Skalatar, in one of her articles in that I read in the Woodbridge News, talked about we had to sell the country club to finance even more projects that people don't want. Like, I talk to a broad spectrum of people every day in my practice from Woodbridge, and the police station. Why we need a monument to the police, I'm not sure why. What we should be concerned about is having police that can do their duty. We need to live in a town that is always going to be predominantly residential in a more austere way, and not be spending such large amounts on buildings we don't need. It might be nice in a world with endless finance to have a grandiose police station, but we've never needed it. We're not a high crime town, and why that is more important than preserving the land at the country club and possibly the country club building itself and using it for other things, I think, again, wrong priorities. The other thing too, now that it's come of late with the contamination at the country club, the town should also be always in control of the cleanup. We don't want to have somebody else doing our cleanup that could really cause problems in the future because it's not done properly. I think at least, as a public property, we can make sure that the cleanup is done properly, and that is a resolved issue for the future. And those are my public comments that I wanted to bring out tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I would urge anyone who is interested to read my comments more closely, and I may be incorrect about this, but I believe when Dr. Broderick was a member of the Conservation Commission and they did a plan of conservation and development, it included a proposal for cluster senior housing on large parcels, possibly for people over 55. So it's not a new idea, it's one that's been around in the town for at least 10 years. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Can I just correct something? I wasn't on the country.
P&Z. TPZ.
Oh, it's plan and zoning. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you're right. It was plan and zoning that did the POCD. I stand
We
corrected.
did talk about cluster housing, but we did not ever envision it for that parcel.
Well, you're right. It's, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know that.
Anybody else?
Can I say something again? Just a quick question. On what part of the agenda will the board be talking about the,
We're going to go back to the country club after this public comment. We're going to go back to the country club discussion.
We didn't finish.
It's number 8. It's number 8.
Number 8.
We didn't finish item number
Oh,
8 because we
I'm
stopped.
sorry, I
the
thought
public
that was about the cleanup.
And generally, well, it's about country club update. It's not limited to cleanup. HRP's piece